Okay, so in question 2 of exercise 1b, we're looking at the perimeter of a 2D shape. And whenever I see a question that involves shapes, I always like to think about what sort of shape it is. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. So a four-sided shape, and the proper name for that is a quadrilateral. Remember the start of the word quad meaning 4. Okay, so that's the name of the shape. And now I look at what the question's asking me to do. So, first of all, the question's asking me to find the perimeter of the shape if x equals 2.3. Before we get to that, let's actually look at the different sides. So here we have 3.1, which is easy enough. Here we have 4.3. Here we have x, right? So we don't actually know what this side is yet. We'll get to that in a minute. And this side here, we don't have a number at all. So how do we work it out? Well, we have 2 dashes here. And we also have 2 dashes over here. What that means is that the sides are the same length. So straight away, I can put in a 3.1 meters into there. So now I know the length of those 3 sides, and I know that the fourth side is x. It's some undetermined number, some number that I don't know yet. Well, in question 2a, so question 2 part A, we're told that x equals 2.3. So in this case, we can actually write, I'll put it in brackets, that this side is 2.3 meters. So that's only for part A, right? That we've only been told that it's true for part A. That might change later. But for part A, it's 2.3. Now, what we're finding is this, the perimeter. What does perimeter mean, right? So you might have seen what it means, you might know what it means, or you might not. That's okay. Perimeter literally means to go around. All right? Go around. And so what we want to know is how far would we need to go to get around the whole shape. All right, so let's write P for perimeter, and let's start walking over here. So we'll start walking in this corner. Well, the first side is 4.3, so we'll write that down. Now remember, you don't write the units in the equation. You don't write it in the actual calculation. You only write it at the end. So the first side is 4.3. The next side, well, that's 3.1. So we write that in. So is the one after that. Right? This side here is also 3.1. And then finally, the last side, now remember that was x, but we're told that x equals 2.3. So that side is just 2.3. And then we've got to add them all up. So 4.3 plus 3.1 plus 3.1 plus 2.3. Just put that into your calculator and you should get 12.8 meters. And that's the answer to part A. Okay, then for part B, so 2B, we're told that the perimeter is 12 meters. And then we're asked to find x. So this 2.3 that was true for part A, right, that's no longer true. We can't use that anymore. That was just for part A. So for part B, it's going to change. What do we know for part B? Well, what we know is that the perimeter from before is the same as 4.3 plus 3.1 plus 3.1 plus, and then the final length, we don't actually know at the moment, right? That stays as x, so we just write x. But we also know that the whole perimeter is equal to 12 meters because we've been told that over here, right? The perimeter is 12 meters. So we have equals 12 on this side because we know that the perimeter equals 12. All right, well, let's add up what we can so far. We can definitely add up these 3 numbers here, right? So we have 4.3 plus 3.1 plus 3.1. So that will give us 10.5 plus, well, x we can't actually add to 10.5. We don't know how to add that because we don't actually know what the number is. So we leave it as x. And that equals 12. Now, remembering our algebra, what we want to do is get x on its own. So to get x on its own, we want to subtract whatever's being added to it. And what's being added to it is 10.5. So we want to go minus 10.5 on this side and minus 10.5 on this side. That just cancels, and we're left with x equals 12 minus 10.5 is 1.5. And remembering the units, which are meters. So that's the answer to 2b. And finally, 2c. And for 2c, we've actually done most of the work in 2b already. So we want to write an expression for x in terms of the perimeter p. Well, before we had that p equals 10.5 plus x, right? Those are just those three things added up, plus x. So that's the expression for perimeter. If we don't know what the perimeter is, right, here we had it as 12, but that was only for part B. For part C, it's something completely different, or it might be anyway. So we have perimeter equals 10.5 plus x. But we want to find an expression for x, right? We have an expression for perimeter. So we want to get this thing, the x, on its own. Well, we do the same thing we did in 2b. We just subtract 10.5 from both sides. So again, that gets cancelled. And what we're left with is p, because again, we don't know what it is, so it has to stay a letter, minus 10.5 equals x. Or if we prefer to have the x on the left-hand side, we just write it the other way around, p minus 10.5. Either way is good. And that's our answer. Right, so anytime you're told to find an expression for x in terms of something else, x has to be your subject. So x has to be on its own. So here we made x to be x on its own. And so that's our answer there.